Breaking news today on Sekulow, a Senate shakeup as a prominent Democrat defects from the party.
Keeping you informed and engaged, now more than ever. This is Sekulow.
This is going to disappoint a lot of Democrats, and they're also going to feel like they don't understand. Why would you do this at a time when the Democratic Party is having a good week?
Well, I think folks at home in Arizona have known me for a very long time, and they know who I am. I've always been someone who is focused on getting results, getting things done, and I've never fit neatly into any party box. I've never really tried. I don't want to, and I think that's reflective of how most Arizonans live.
We want to hear from you. Share and post your comments or call 1-800-684-3110.
Well, I intend to maintain my position on my committees and keep doing the work that I've been doing for Arizona. So I don't think that things will change in terms of how I operate or the work that I do in the United States Senate.
And now your host, Jordan Sekulow.
Welcome to Sekulow. We're taking your calls too, 1-800-684-3110. Two really breaking issues. We're going to discuss Kyrsten Sinema, of course, this move in the U.S. Senate, and then the Twitter files part 2 that have been released, and how the shadow banning was going on, the dethrottling going on at Twitter, and how Elon Musk is trying to correct it as well. So I retweeted last night. We'll go through all of that a little bit later in the broadcast. So I want to start with Kyrsten Sinema, because at a time when the Democrats were about to take the Senate 51-49, she decides to leave her party. Now, there's a couple reasons behind this. She has an election coming up in 2 years. She was going to be challenged from the left. And we've seen this a couple times. We saw it with Joe Lieberman. We've seen it with Angus King in Maine when he left the Republican Party, and he might have been challenged from the right. So we've seen people, and Bernie Sanders, of course, is an independent, who, again, run as independent in states where they've already are well known, like she is in Arizona, that has a pretty independent kind of politics anyways, maverick kind of politics in that John McCain kind of old school style. And so she had some personal reasons to do this, because it takes her out of being challenged by the Democrat Party. She'll run as an independent. And she's got her whole machine in place, but won't have to go through a nasty Democrat primary. Now, the difference here is the first thing I asked when I saw this news this morning, and my brother texted me, I said, is she still caucusing with the Democrats?
Yes.
And the answer is she plans to keep her committee seats. She's no longer going to attend Democrat caucus meetings, which Bernie Sanders and Angus King, the other two independents, do. They effectively are Democrats for purposes of Senate math. She doesn't even know if her desk is going to stay on the same side as the Democrats in the U.S. Senate. Now, here's the one part of this is, as of right now, this still does not change the balance of power. So I think she probably was only going to make this move if Warnock beat Walker, which he did, and thus that she could make the move to independent without giving power over to either the 50-50 Senate or Republican Senate. But it does certainly, again, it puts a wedge in, as we played from Jake Tapper, his question to Kyrsten Sinema, it puts a wedge in in the entire Democrat talking point of, we're doing so great, we're the ones winning, because a Republican House is about to come in as well, and now you've got this new kind of actor in the Senate. It also raises back the profile inside the Democrat Party of Joe Manchin.
Yeah, so it's an interesting dynamic because, and of course the news is going ballistic because this kind of upsets the apple cart. We don't know exactly where this is going to fall in. But one of the things that is clear, and I think that we've got to recognize here, is at the end of this process, when she decides, she could caucus with the Republicans if she wanted to, or not caucus with anyone. The question will be, will she keep her committee seats? And that's going to be the great challenge. But you think it's because she's got competition coming?
Well, that was definitely part of it. I mean, she was going to have a challenge from the left in Arizona. It didn't mean she could win the primary, but I think as someone, you can really only do this if you've been established. If you're an Angus King from Maine, if you're Bernie Sanders from Vermont, if you were Joe Lieberman from Connecticut, he did this as well when he was challenged from the left. So I think she said, I'm going to vote the same way, which is still pretty liberal, but a little bit better on issues like border security and issues like that. That she just felt she was never really a Democrat in the first place. And so she's taking herself out of that structure. If you've got questions about it, 1-800-684-3110. She says she plans on keeping her committee seats. They don't have to give them to her. So that's going to be an interesting power struggle as well. We'll be right back.
Breaking news this morning, Senator Kyrsten Sinema registering as an Arizona independent. Sinema making a video announcement saying that she has declared her independence from the broken partisan system in Washington.
I've registered as an Arizona independent. I know some people might be a little bit surprised by this, but actually I think it makes a lot of sense. You know, a growing number of Arizonans and people like me just don't feel like we fit neatly into one party's box or the other. And so, like many across the state and the nation, I've decided to leave that partisan process and really just focus on the work that I think matters to Arizona and to our country, which is solving problems and getting things done.
She says she doesn't expect the Senate structure to change because of her decision. And it is true to an extent because Democrats will still keep their majority. They'll still likely keep their control over committees, but it won't be as much of a cushion that they thought they had with Senator Warnock's reelection.
She has a streak of bucking the Democratic Party for years now. It may not change the political complexion of this Congress much because she was already a mercurial vote. Even when she was a U.S. House member, I recall watching her not vote for her party's choice to be Speaker. She wouldn't vote for Nancy Pelosi.
We know that Kyrsten Sinema has not necessarily towed the line with all of the kind of social issues and the different things that the Democrat Party has been fighting for. I think this is a good sign that a lot of people are not wanting to follow this kind of perverse and America Last ideology, and that's the reason for their switch.
Not be, stuck into one party's demands of following without thinking. And as we've seen in recent years, both parties have created this kind of requirement or a pull towards the edges that you just unthinkingly support all of one party's viewpoints.
All right, welcome back to Sekulow. We're taking your phone calls at 1-800-684-3110. We're going to get into the Twitter files in just a bit, but we want to start with the breaking news about Kyrsten Sinema. What it's not is a balance of power shakeup in who controls the U.S. Senate. That will still be
the media.
It's a loss for listen. Anytime someone who was in your party after election decides to leave your party and say, "I don't care about your apparatus, I don't need the DNC, I don't need your fundraising support, I don't need your grassroots support. Probably you were going to run a candidate against me," which was likely the case in 2024. So I'm stepping back. I have my own machine. It's going to be the Kyrsten Sinema machine as an independent in a state where that can actually work. In Arizona, it's proven to work in places like that. And so, and also she had problems with the Arizona Democrat Party being way too liberal as well. So she's saying I don't think this is a Tulsi Gabbard move. It's not like she's becoming a Republican, but, and really, the only way she could really hurt the Democrats, and even this would not take their power away, would be if she said, "I'm going to caucus with the Republicans."
But you mentioned the thing about Joe Manchin, whose power diminished when they got 51-49. Yes. Does this change that dynamic? You think it might?
It could, because he's still part of the apparatus, so he can ask for more in those caucus meetings to get his vote. He can say, you've got to do more.
But they didn't do what he asked this last time.
They put it into legislation. It got voted out by liberals in the Democrat Party and Republicans, who sent a clear message to Joe Manchin: stop trusting Chuck Schumer or Nancy Pelosi to put in pipeline legislation in anything when their entire party is about ending fossil fuel in America. So, I think that was a huge loss for him. And it really showed. He talks about all that power he has, how little power he really did have at the end of the day as one U.S. senator who could not deliver for a state. And that was this whole reason why he justified supporting the Inflation Reduction Act.
Right.
Which was the one thing that turned people against him in West Virginia. And his selling point was, I'm going to get you this pipeline. Well, his jobs, no pipelines going to West Virginia.
What's also interesting in all this is, of course, the Republicans are going to take over the House of Representatives on January 3rd. By, looks like somewhere between 3 to 5 seats. Yep. So they'll pick a majority leader. It looks like it's going to be Kevin McCarthy.
Yep. And
they will move forward. So that is the block and tackle of legislation initiatives. Sure. We did lose, the Republicans did lose the Senate even 50-50 on the committees. That's a problem. The interesting dynamic is, will this change that? And that's going to be totally up to Kyrsten Sinema.
Yeah, I get it. Even if she left and went to the Republican Party, they would have a majority. Right. So again, it would be that's 50-50. I don't think she's making that move. So Chuck Schumer's still going to be majority leader. They're going to still have control over the committees as of right now, unless she decides to make a decision to caucus with Republicans. There's nothing that appears like that is the case in her statement. She actually says the opposite about both parties, that neither party doesn't fit into either party's structure. I would say that the Republican Party is a much bigger tent party right now, that the Democrat Party's gotten so liberal.
Yeah.
You've got to meet all of their standards. But end of the day, what it does show is even after success, they've got major cracks going on within their party as well. I think both parties.
At least on YouTube asks, is there a chance Joe Manchin leaves the Democratic Party? Probably not.
I think it's like we need to stop. If it ever happened, fine, it happened. Wonderful. Stop thinking that it will. I think he just plays people for that. He's a big spending Democrat.
Yeah,
that's what he always supports. He loves spending he loves spending your tax dollars. He's supported the increase in the IRS agents. He loves,
which is something I like to see the Republicans, when they get in control of the House, stop that.
Stop the appropriation process.
Yeah, stop the appropriation process. Put more agents on the border, less IRS agents being hired. 87,000 IRS agents is ridiculous.
Yeah, and $80 billion.
That's going to correct their problems? No, it's not.
Yeah, they want to go after people who make under like $200,000.
They're trying to go after what they call gig jobs.
It's all the stuff we were talking about with Venmo and all of that, with the $600 having to be reported through a 1099. They're going to sit down.
But those kind of things I think can change. I think we can see some changes in that front, and that's a good thing.
Sinema was one of those people who said, this is wrong. We're not going to we should put it back to at most, at minimum maybe like 5,000, but why don't we just keep it at the 20,000 and 200 transactions?
It's interesting. We're getting a lot of comments coming in on Rumble and also on Facebook and YouTube. Joey on Rumble writes, Joe Manchin is for Joe Manchin and not for West Virginia. He voted for several bills with Green New Deal garbage in it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and
that was his words, garbage, not mine. But
I think that Joe Manchin really gave up on caring about a lot of that when he did vote for the Inflation Reduction Act. What he was going to try to pivot to later on was, remember, you guys didn't like that I voted for this. Now look what I brought back in return was this big pipeline with all these jobs. That's not coming back anymore. So he's supposedly very angry. So you got angry Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema leaving. And what I think it does show is, like Tulsi, there is a very narrow person politically to match up with the Democrat Party. And you have to, especially when you're a U.S. Senator, I think maybe in the House it might be a little different, but at the Senate level, when you're like one of 100, you have to match up with all of the state party and the national party, which is very far left. And if you don't match up with that, they want you out. What used to be the far left of their party, they talk about a lot about the far right running the Republican Party. The far left is running the Democrat Party too.
Right.
I mean, that's clear with this move from Kyrsten Sinema.
The question, again, I want people to understand this, is as we look at the issues that we're dealing with congressionally, we're talking about our government affairs office. So the way the ACLJ is structured, we've got our lawyers, we've got a government affairs office, we got a government accountability project, of course, we've got the ACLJ action. But you look at this legislatively, this presents a possible opportunity in the Senate to move some more blocking and tackle.
That's right. She's been opposed to getting rid of the filibuster.
Yep.
And now she's not going to have the party pressure.
Right.
Also, for groups like ACLJ, and we're nonpartisan, but we're seen as a conservative group.
Right.
Her staff would usually be very careful about engaging because they're part of the Democrat Party. This opens us up to be able to even go to Kyrsten Sinema. Say, you're not. Yeah, but you're not. Yeah, to say you're not part of this party, that party. So if there's like you said, specific issue, which we know we can work with her on, whether it's border security or the filibuster issue, I think this opens up her staff to be able to communicate with us and not feel like they are going to get in trouble for even taking a phone call from the ACLJ, which is the case on most Democrats.
By the way, back when we started, we had Democrats that we represented before the Supreme Court in amicus briefs.
Yeah. Well, that's not the case. That's not the world we live in anyways, no. In our lives and how divided people are with partisan politics. So that, of course, that translates to Washington, D.C.
Paul's also on all this 1-800-684-3110. The one thing that's interesting is she waited until after the midterm election.
Yes,
and she waited until after Herschel Walker Warnock race.
Right. I think she did not want to throw power to the Republican Party. So she was not trying to make Mitch McConnell majority leader. So because if she would have announced this before Herschel's race, I think that would have added a whole new enthusiasm to try and get Walker across the line. Like a different kind of money being spent.
Oh, yeah.
Because you said maybe we have this shot of actually taking back the Senate as well. So she didn't do that. That was not the move. I think the move was Herschel Walker lost. I can leave the Democrat Party, but I'm not really hurting them.
And it also puts her as a real power player.
Yeah, she's still right in the middle.
Yeah.
She's that vote that's key for them and key for Republicans to help block things. Which she has been a vocal opponent of getting rid of the filibuster. Which is really, right now, is a little bit of a moot point, except because the nominees can already go through.
Correct, that's already done.
And the legislation's not going to go through because the House is going to not pass it.
Right. So, Joe, is it fair to say, do you think, that Joe Biden's lame duck at this point?
Yes, unless he really... I mean, I think these kind of moves show that, too. This happened to Republicans with Angus King. Remember, he pulled this on Republicans a much nastier way. But, yes, I think, listen, we're not going to see a lot of groundbreaking legislation on either right or left moving through Congress the next 2 years. And Republicans are going to block any kind of new spending, any kind of major new liberal plans. That's not going to it's not going to go through. But again, we know with the nominees, we know with the committee power, they still can get through whoever they want if there's a Supreme Court vacancy.
Yep.
They have to just get to 51. That's the same for the lower courts as well. Same for cabinet officials. But when it comes to legislation itself, the filibuster's still in place. With that plus a Republican House, there shouldn't be any legislation moving that's not truly a compromise that Republicans agree with.
All right, so let me tell you what we've got going on. We are filing, hopefully today, if not, it'll be Monday morning, our reply brief in the Supreme Court case involving religious liberty. We had an argument in the Sixth Circuit, two of them, one on Tuesday, one on Thursday. Look at all of these, and you say this, that it's important to support the work of the ACLJ. Because we're talking now about Legislative and Government Affairs Office. You make a big difference here. ACLJ.org.
Yeah, support the work of the ACLJ. You can double the impact of your donation at ACLJ.org. We have our matching challenge right now through the month of December. It's an easy process to understand. We have a group of donors that will match each donation that comes through. So if you donate $50 at ACLJ.org right now, we have a donor that's going to match that $50 donation. Very simple. So it's like $100 for the ACLJ. Be a part of that. It's why we can. We have the resources that we do, and we can deploy those resources. ACLJ.org. Donate today. We'll be right back.
Independent journalist Barry Weiss revealing how the social media giant secretly blacklisted conservative tweets and users.
They would have teams of Twitter employees build blacklists. They would prevent disfavored tweets from trending and actively limit the visibility of entire accounts or even trending topics, all in secret without informing users.
Weiss highlighting the account of Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, who was placed on a, quote, trends blacklist because he said that COVID lockdowns would harm children. Fox News personality Dan Bongino slapped with a search blacklist tag, limiting Twitter users' ability to actually find his account. Weiss ending the thread, tweeting, quote, "We're just getting started on our reporting. Documents cannot tell the whole story here."
It appears to prove that the conservatives were not conspiracy theorists and not paranoid. They were right to believe that their material was being hidden.
In 2018, Twitter's then head of legal policy and trust and head of products said, "We do not shadow ban." They added, "And we certainly don't shadow ban based on political viewpoints or ideology."
They're treating my Twitter account with more scrutiny and censorship than the prime minister of Iran, than Hamas, than people that do actual terroristic type damage. And now we have evidence to show that's exactly why my Twitter account the last couple of years has been down 95%.
Twitter, under oath, would say we don't shadow ban. We don't take a political point of view on our users. What Bari Weiss has exposed, from Charlie Kirk to Dan Bongino to libs of TikTok to doctors at Stanford, it was one particular direction.
I think the more transparency, the files being released. I've even said I'm open to hearings in Congress, in a Republican Congress, as long as they're not about gotcha politics. What did President Biden do? What did Trump do, but more about the broader questions of free speech and censorship.
All right, welcome back to Sekulow. We are taking your calls on this too. The Twitter part 2 of the files. Now we're learning shadow banning real, de-throttling real, access to your own followers real, take your inability to even reach people who want to follow you, to make sure that you don't trend, to make sure your statements don't trend, was all real. It was all and it was not done through AI. It was done specifically by individuals at Twitter, a team at Twitter. We knew that, again, it was Jim Baker from the FBI, who was at the FBI's general counsel, who moved to Twitter, who was blocking this release as of last week. He's now been moved out of Twitter by Elon Musk, is the new term, moved out.
He was unconvincing in his response, according to Elon, of why he should stick around.
Yes, he's no good. And so it was trying to keep this moving. So we have this sound. I want to play it for you because this was a stelter. Going to Jack Dorsey, who created Twitter, was their CEO for a long time. And he said, outright, just ask him this question. Take a listen.
The president called you out for shadow banning. What is the truth around that idea?
So I think a lot of the statements behind the statement, the question behind the question is, look, shadow banning is a very widely defined term. There's not one single definition. So the definition that we found that seems to resonate with the most people is not amplifying particular messages, or if someone puts out a tweet, hiding that tweet from everyone without that person who tweeted it knowing about it. So, but the real question behind the question is, are we doing something according to political ideology or viewpoints? And we are not, period.
Shadow, I think it's both. Yeah, but what is shadow? I think for a lot of our listeners, what is shadow banning?
I mean, it's what he kind of said, is what we've kind of been said, which is you don't know necessarily that your message is not getting out there.
You put it out on Twitter and it just...
Yeah, it's just not getting served, essentially.
And it could be really popular, but it's only going to get to a handful.
That's why you see some accounts that have millions of followers, but then, that tweet only had one interaction or something happened. You had to go seek it out to find it. Yeah. So they weren't just saying people who were getting banned or getting their accounts suspended. And what happened here is he's saying, no, we don't do that. And what we've learned in the Twitter files that came out, part 2 that came out yesterday from Barry Weiss, is absolutely they were doing that. And they were doing that, as you said, not even in a way that was AI driven. They did it in the way you would think of if you were just coming up with a really basic conspiratorial way of looking at it, which I honestly thought wasn't how these kind of big tech organizations run, which is literally just people creating lists of people not to be served.
Yeah, like Dan Bongino was on a search blacklist. So if you search for him, you wouldn't find his account. Things like that. Like he still had an account.
Yeah,
it was active.
His account.
But you couldn't find it if you were someone
new. Are we on
new.
any of these lists?
We've been banned from ads. So in 2017, we had run an advertising campaign. Now, this is kind of the end of Twitter. So a lot of this is because we're all reusing Twitter, going to try to use, because a lot of you have come back to Twitter. We've gone back to utilize it more. We got very basic with it. We basically post the live link to the show and our blogs, but no commentary, no back and forth.
It wasn't worth it.
Because it became a hellhole. Really.
It really did. It became where a lot of hate would come from, would only be from Twitter, and we weren't getting the interactions like we once were.
Right. You weren't getting your people's support for it. So you weren't reaching an audience that mattered, except for a bunch of people that didn't like you. So then we went back. We had our guys, though.
Just in the last few weeks. Just last few weeks.
Wasn't even here in 2017.
Right. Our social media team. And I said, hey, I've noticed, obviously people are getting back on Twitter. We need to start looking at ad campaigns to run on Twitter. We wouldn't mind spending some more of our ad dollars there. We spend it on other social media platforms. Might as well share it on one of the few that's preaching free speech right now. And we went to go log in to set up ads and realized that your account, as well as your account, both of you, Jay and Jordan, both have no ability currently to run ads based on something we don't know what it was back 6 years ago. And that's
where the shadow banning is. We have no idea what it was. We don't know what it was.
Yeah, we have no information of what happened in that time period.
Notice or anything like that.
No, and look, we know what we post. We are pretty middle of the road in terms of the way we use social media. Yeah. We are not posting things that are extremist points of view. So something happened there, but still 6-7 years later, we can't even spend money with Twitter, even if we wanted to. And that's something hopefully will get rectified in the near future.
Well, Elon Musk tweeted out that they're working on a software update.
Yeah, this is pretty interesting.
To show you your true account status.
What does that also mean?
Are you on any of these lists?
Yeah.
Have you been dethrottled? So are you on a list that doesn't get your message out? Are you not on a search list? Are you on the banned from ads list? And then this supposedly will allow you to figure out the reason why and how to appeal.
Yeah, and Facebook has some of this in their back end already where you can see, well, this got flagged for this. If you got hit with a disinformation, misinformation, and you kind of can know a few reasons why this stuff may happen. However, it's still never clear. And you never know if you're being dethrottled. It actually says on there, we may actually serve it to less people. There's at least a little more honesty in the fact that they may be serving it to less. Twitter doesn't really have that. So right now, you're going to be able to go, kind of like your Uber score, I have a feeling, and go see, what you've been ranked. And that will be pretty fascinating to see the inside workings of Twitter like this. And that's what this really is showing, and you got to give it to Elon for that, is to show the inner workings of how a lot of these big social media empires work.
Yeah, I mean, this is huge. I want to take calls, too, from folks, because everybody who was told you're a conspiracy theorist, everybody that was told that they were a conspiracy theorist, it was right.
Yeah, I mean, even to, like I said, almost comedically, because I really just did not expect it to be this simplified, that this was Charlie Kirk said something wrong. We put him on a graphic. There's a list. It has, different things that they can't do, whether it is, we're looking at it right now, recent abuse strikes, notification. It has do not amplify, and those kind of things put on there. And they even had accounts that they knew maybe in that sort of gray area of violation, but they knew would cause them some chaos if they banned them, saying, do not ban this account without talking to a supervisor. So we even know that there were those accounts. So if it was a Dan Bongino who they were definitely shadow banning, or it was a Charlie Kirk, instead of banning them, which maybe someone who is looking at the monitoring of tweets said, we should ban them, they put a little thing on there saying, don't do it, because we know this will be bring them down.
It was called the Strategic Response Team – Global Escalation Team, SRT GET. 200 cases a day.
A day.
These were individuals, this is not AI driven. So it's not like they put in keywords like COVID vaccine. This was individuals to say, what do we do to this account? And again, it was a little different. That's why he answered that question, I think, that way. He defined shadow banning for his purposes. They had,
but even in his definition, they were doing
that, but they were also doing other part. So you might get your account suspended. You might get your account permanently thrown out. You might get just a message under your tweet. You might get dethrottled, so your message is not. You might be taken off the search ability. You might have your ability to advertise taken away. These were all different steps, but what we're seeing is that it wasn't a computer doing this. All these companies always love to blame the computer and say, it's an AI error, and maybe we get this fixed, but then there's no one to contact anymore because they've all had to fire so much staff, like Facebook and Twitter. So Elon Musk says it's going to be a computer-driven program to rectify this. He's not saying they can do it overnight.
I'd like to hear from our audience. If you're back on Twitter, or if you're following Twitter, or using Twitter, or going to it as a source, I'd like to hear from you. Or if you've decided you're still not going to, 1-800-684-3110, a whole half hour coming up. Don't forget, support the work of the ACLJ with our matching challenge campaign. December's the biggest month of the year for us. Any amount you donate, we get a matching gift for. So ACLJ.org, that's ACLJ.org. And your gift is doubled. Someone is going to match it. So if you donated $50, we're getting another $50, so we get $100. It only costs you $50, which we appreciate. That's how it works in the matching challenge campaign. But again, if you want to talk to us, we've got a lot more to talk about in the next half hour, but I want to talk about this Twitter a little bit more. 1-800-684-3110, your experience on it. Back with more in a moment. I just watched an interesting video by cardiothoracic surgeon Dr. Gundry. This is a discussion about leaky gut. And this is caused by a toxin that's in, quote, all of the healthy foods that scientists have been telling us to eat with the food pyramid for the longest time. And this toxin causes leaky gut, according to Dr. Gundry, as I said, a world-renowned cardiologist. The harmful condition leaky gut is affecting millions of people nationwide. Warning signs include weight gain and fatigue and digestive discomfort, as well as stiff and achy joints, even skin problems. Well, Dr. Gundry explains these side effects are often mistaken for normal signs of aging because leaky gut develops usually over a matter of years, sometimes even a matter of decades. The good news is this can be easily fixed from your home, and it's very simple. You just have to know which foods are actually healthy and which contain this hidden toxin. So you can find this yourself at gutcleanseprotocol.com/J. That's gutcleanseprotocol.com/J.
Keeping you informed and engaged. Now more than ever. This is Sekulow. And now your host, Jordan Sekulow.
All right, welcome back to Sekulow. We are talking about the Twitter release part 2. So as we talk about this, Logan, there was the first release that went through Matt Taibbi. That was tell people about that one.
Yeah, that first one came out, was it maybe about a week ago, maybe less than a week ago, over the weekend. Matt Taibbi dropped the first Twitter files, which was really about suppression of news information, suppression of something like the Hunter Biden situation. So that came out.
That was more about the story that they would suppress, not the accounts.
Yeah. Then it went over, and this is kind of going to be ping-ponging. So now it went over to Barry Weiss, who then put out Twitter Files Part 2, which is about the blacklisting, and because that's what they were creating. They were creating blacklist. They were creating shadow ban accounts, and it really goes deep dive into whether it is the comedic ones, like the libs of TikTok, or whether it's Charlie Kirk, or whether it's Dan Bongino, and going through, and again, probably likely us due to some things we've discovered recently of why things got banned, and really even how it all worked. It's really fascinating. I encourage everyone to go read it. And it's pages and pages, so it's not something we can just read on the air. But that's great. And then we know part 3 is coming back to Matt Taibbi, who will now take part 3, and we don't know what that will be on necessarily, but we'll see.
But we were, like I said, we were banned because of ads. People, we got good calls coming in. Let's go ahead and take them. 1-800-684-3110. What do you think?
Yeah, Norm in Washington, D.C. on line 1. Hey, Norm.
Yeah, hey, thanks for taking my call. I was just curious. I know that we can't sue Twitter or, any of the other social medias directly, but now that we know who the culprits are, can they be held liable, and can, organizations sue people like, Jim Baker?
Tough because of Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act.
They're broad immunity.
Broad immunity.
They can't be hauled before Congress.
Yes. But I think what happened, though, is Elon Musk is I'm trying to fix all this. So you could, time me up by going to congressional hearings, but I got to try to get this fixed. And I think he's trying to get
Musk
it fixed.
is not. No, not Elon Musk. It's because you pull Baker.
The older ones.
Yeah, but you're not. Baker was an employee of Twitter. So there's no private cause of action.
No, I do wonder, what about all the advertising money that maybe a Dan Bongino was spending, and yet they dethroned his account? There could be action there.
Could be breach of contract.
Yeah, financial.
And
like
if
they were taking your money, if they were taking your money for ads,
and then
which they wouldn't take ours, but then not serving your tweets.
Yes, I think they'd have exposure.
I think then that Section 230 has nothing to do with that.
Correct.
That's not about Section 230 is about content, and it does let them kind of get away with what, and that was really about because so they're not liable for criminal content that gets posted quickly, and they're always trying to get rid of that. But this also, Logan, it shows you where they spend their time. Instead of going after child pornography and drugs,
they don't want to talk about abortion
and maybe what the Ayatollah is saying about killing all of the Israelis. It was about it's very American specific. That's an American-based company. Yep. Very U.S. specific about conservative political actors, not elected officials other than Trump, but a lot of conservative political grassroots actors.
Yeah, and exactly. People, podcasters, radio show hosts. We'll see what all comes out. Maybe there is more on both sides, but for as of now, it's pretty clear that it was swinging very far one way. That it was one side really being targeted for all of this.
Yeah, and then you see this sound from people, and I want to play this going into the break, for people like Eric Swalwell, mocking conservatives about this, call us conspiracy theorists. This is just in 2022, by the way. This is this year, back in May. Take a listen.
Republicans have this, warped perception that Google and Facebook and others are shadow banning them. When you look at the best performing pages on Facebook, and it's all conservative voices, but they, again, in their warped minds, they think that they're being affected by big tech. That's their interest here.
First of all, we've noticed that that's not the case anymore on Facebook.
Yeah, you're not getting near as much.
Lately, those are not the top performing posts. And second, it's real. And there was no conspiracy here.
We did have top 10 performing.
Oh, all the time, yeah. And it would still happen from now and then, yes. And I think a large group of people that are still on Facebook that are engaged in those kind of things are conservatives. So that content's still older, yeah.
So again, folks, we'll take your calls, 1-800-684-3110. That's 1-800-684-3110. Are you back on Twitter? Do you feel like, again, are you getting the messages from the people you follow? Will this make a difference? We decide, hey, now maybe I'll give this platform another shot. 1-800-684-3110 to be on the show. We'll be right back on Sekulow.
When we see something, when we hear something, when we're concerned about an issue, we don't just talk about it. We do something about it. And that goes to our Government Accountability Project.
If we allow leaders in Washington, D.C. to make decisions behind closed doors, unaccountable to the people, then we are going to get skewed and corrupt decisions.
There are lots of other places that do lots of important work for America, but the ACLJ has taken up a lane which is irreplaceable.
The Freedom of Information Act, that's a statute that allows us to get information from the government. Starts with a letter from our offices in Washington to these agencies. And it says, give us this information on these topics. And generally, they don't. And then we go to court.
We go through a series of lengthy negotiations back and forth about what they'll give or what they won't give. We may get tons of information that's redacted, and we have to then go back and say, you redacted too much. We can't really find out what you're giving us because it makes no sense. So it goes through a process of litigation.
That is how you get information, and that office is going to be more active now more than ever.
The ACLJ has been extremely active in vigorously seeking to hold these bureaucrats accountable. We have filed hundreds of FOIA requests. We have received over 20,000 pages of documents in our litigation.
Holding them accountable, holding the Biden administration accountable so that all Americans are able to have faith in their government.
We will up our efforts. We will not stop.
You're finding a nugget in a gold mine. Occasionally you'll come up with something that is really a bombshell, but you have to persist in doing it, and that's what we do.
That's a little bit of what we do through our Office of Government Accountability, and of course that comes under our Office of Government Affairs. So your support of the ACLJ supports all of that.
They didn't like on Twitter conservative parody accounts, like whether it was Babylon Bee or also liberals of TikTok, which was just an account that would show crazy liberal stuff on TikTok and put it on Twitter because they knew that conservatives weren't going to see that information and likely weren't using TikTok. And that got banned. And that was, again, using public content that people post, say, look how crazy this stuff is, what liberals actually talk like when they're talking to each other and don't think you're watching. And that got banned. And so it's this idea that parody, comedy, even just, kind of news, like exposing what people are putting online, which is all public, that was being intentionally banned, but only if it was coming from a conservative voice. What is clear from all of this reporting, Logan, is that the only people targeted were conservative.
It feels that way, unless they're keeping information from us. The Twitter
which
files.
Which would make them look very bad. If they do
I don't think so. And neither Matt nor Barry are like
right-wingers.
No, these are honestly more traditional liberals, if you will, free speech liberals. But yeah, from what it looks like, it was very specific who they were going after, and it was definitely more conservative leaning people. Hey, Elton John just announced 3 hours ago, by the way, he is leaving the platform. He has left Twitter. And he put, because of misinformation that is now allowed to flourish unchecked, Elon responded with, what is this misinformation that he's even referring to? So.
Right. Put them in their place a little bit.
One of our listeners on Rumble noted.
Right. Twitter was not a place for like Elton John.
No.
It was a place for news, political discussion, community discussion, issue discussion, not I have a concert coming up tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, he has million followers plus, but if you look, really, most of it's 100 likes here, 100 likes. I think a lot of people were noticing that too. Is this really where we should be even spending our resources? And look, that's what we had with Twitter. When Twitter was going through all this, we decided, should we even putting our team
So we didn't even know that we were banned from running ads because we didn't want to run ads.
Right, exactly.
It was interesting. We got a comment from Rumble that said that they have noticed that in the last weeks, people they were following, they are starting to get their information, and the number of followers those people had has gone up, which I just checked on my account, and it went up about 30,000 since I last checked.
A lot of people reactivated also who were inactive, as well as more people joined the platform.
Well, what's happened is that they got rid of a lot of bots. So some of those accounts that weren't real lost a lot.
Disappeared. And
but if
he
you
put
were,
that up. He put, hey, we're purging the bots, so if you see a notice, we'll drop. Because, look, there are a lot of people, even in the conservative world, that started going, hey, Elon, I lost 10,000 followers. What happened here?
I've actually gained.
Yeah.
So I'm saying I'm losing. Maybe even with bots being cleared out, more people are reacting.
I've just maintained my same few thousand people that follow me are like, that's my people.
Then follow @LoganSekulow on Twitter.
It's not as fun, but you can.
And Jordan Sekulow.
Let's go to the phones. Marty in Florida on line 5. Hey, Marty.
Good morning. Thank you for taking my call. I appreciate all your hard work. I was just sharing with the person who answered the phone earlier that I've had several negative experiences with Facebook. In different ways, they make it where I'm unable to see or hear or follow on your daily show Monday through Friday. And I had a different experience this morning. A lot of times I'll go to Facebook first because it's just easier to get to on my phone the way my apps are arranged. I was able to see your live broadcast earlier this morning, but the audio part of it was like 3 or 4 different live shows going on at the same time, so the words were all so jumbled I couldn't follow anything at all. So, of course, I switched over to Rumble, but I just wanted to share that. It's on topic. It's not about Twitter, but just another example of our, the message getting out and them controlling.
Facebook is worse.
We've had a lot of issues with Facebook.
Well, like right now, nobody's watching on Facebook, basically.
Nobody.
But not a lot of people.
600 people. I mean, not as much, but that would be 10,000. Then it was 1,500. There's 2,000, which means notifications are changing, the way people are doing, and just the way people, and some people have moved. They've moved, like she said, you moved to Rumble.
Once you do that, you don't really go back.
Yeah, well, Rumble's been great. I'll just say it. They've been great.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a much smoother video platform. We never have issues with we don't have to worry about what we're going to talk about that day.
Yeah, the title is not the concern.
What word
will not get served or get served, which is what we do. We sit around trying to decide what we're going to title these shows. We have to go, what word will Facebook decide to feature? What word will YouTube decide to feature? Not just feature, what will they decide to not feature? That's more it. It's not about what we can use to get people hooked to watch. It's what words can we not use, knowing that it will get banned or will be blocked or it'll be shadow banned or it'll be suppressed.
Yeah.
And we know that. We have a list of those words. I mean, for real. We have a list of those words
People
not
need
to
to
use.
understand that.
And sometimes when we do use them, we see, oh, yeah, we're still right, that those don't get served. Because it's definitely on topics that you care about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We go back to phones, 1-800-684-3110. That's 1-800-684-3110. Let's go to Kathy in Virginia on line 3. Hey, Kathy.
Hi. I have a question. I'm a grandma, and I read news articles. I watch different news outlets on TV. I don't know anything about Twitter. How did it start? Why did it start? Who started it? Why is it such a big deal? And what's the history of this?
A lot of questions there. Twitter is 2006?
Yeah, maybe even a little bit before then. It's been around 15 years or so. A little bit more than that. I think 15, 17 years.
Short message platform to break news, have discussions.
It was the very beginning of the social media boom.
Yeah, it was the beginning. So you'd set up an account. You could follow people who are well known. You can interact with them. You had a limit to it, so you could not just post these. You could post manifestos. Then they had video platform abilities. You could post links to that. It became a very good source for breaking news. Still is one of the fastest places out. Sometimes it beats the notifications to your phone. The news actually breaks there first. So that's that. It was us. Jack Dorsey was the founder of Twitter, and it was at some point they were thought about not even ever going corporate and being some multi-billion-dollar company, but being like an open source platform. It's huge internationally. It's big for protest movements. It's big in countries that try to silence speech. What happened was Donald Trump took it to another level.
For everything.
Did he have like 80 million followers? It was a huge number, right?
It wasn't the number one. No. Number one is like a Kardashian.
No, there's some
like
that are like in the billion-ish
Ronaldo,
range.
Soccer player, because he's international.
Yeah, Trump is currently at 87.
I think Ronaldo has like,
I can tell you,
$1 billion. 106 million.
Yeah. I'm not sure the top. Yeah.
So, anyways, athletes use it, people use it, corporations use it to get it's never quite figured out how to make money.
Nope.
Still. So it's worth a lot because of amount of users, but their advertised never been about right. And I'm not telling you that it's for everybody. It's not for everybody. I'd say if you're very into the news, if you're very into like breaking news, like you don't want to wait to see it on TV, it's great for that. So for instance, like Supreme Court cases coming out, and the info of that, it gets
It's there
there
in seconds.
before the news, and you get to read it, so it's not going to be misreported like in the news, like where somebody may come out in the news and they're trying to describe to you the Supreme Court opinion, and there it's written down, typed out, usually with a hyperlink. You go right to an opinion. Politics, trending, all of it.
Barack Obama actually has the most followers of anyone.
Internationally?
Internationally, total, with 133.5 million.
Maybe it's not on Twitter.
Yeah, that is on Twitter. That's what I'm talking about. And then
Facebook, I mean,
maybe
Instagram.
Yeah, and then Elon is 120 million, so not that far behind one of the biggest ones.
You know, it's interesting. It was started in March 21st, 2006, San Francisco, California. And it was, I remember when we first went on it, you always would have one friend. It would be Jack Dorsey, the guy who founded it, right? That was a long time ago.
You're thinking of something else. You're thinking of MySpace, I think.
MySpace?
Yeah,
I don't even remember. Was that guy named Jack too?
That guy's name was, what was the guy's name on MySpace?
Nah, forget MySpace.
Yeah, Tom on MySpace. Yeah,
there you go.
There's a Facebook of that too.
Was Facebook, did you have to be friends with
their friend?
Zuckerberg? No, it was MySpace. You're thinking of MySpace.
I don't know. Oh, it's Cristiano Ronaldo has over 500 million on Instagram.
Instagram, bigger platform like that, much younger platform.
Yeah, Twitter's an interesting platform. It's a news junkie platform.
You started using it again.
Even like sports news, any kind of news, things you need in an instant.
Yes, things you want. So yeah, if you're like really into sports, you can follow one of your favorite athletes.
Yeah, and then live
but
coverage.
Also live commentary from more than just what you'd get on TV.
Yeah, for sure.
So like some true insider, the people who are like just devoted to Georgia Bulldogs news or and reporting on what's happening in the football program in Georgia. Yeah. That is not going to even make like ESPN. Because It's not a big enough story.
It's like a niche audience.
But for fans, it's great. And so it's not as much advertising based. Like I feel like Instagram gets me more on like what I want to buy.
For sure.
Products. That's not Twitter really either.
No.
There are some funny corporate advertising that's gone on with Twitter where they'll like go out, they'll go back and forth. Like Arby's will go after like get your Wagyu beef at Arby's.
Yeah, they've been trying to figure out all of this of how to even get ads to kind of work on Twitter for years because it never really was a ad platform that made any sense. Where Instagram and Facebook, it's kind of become, which is all the same. That's Meta. They've all figured it out. Twitter, I think, is still trying to figure that out. They're still trying to figure out how to make money with ads or with subscription services or whatever it is they're going to offer.
Yeah. So, folks, we'll continue to take your phone calls, 1-800-684-3110. There's more coming. I mean, that's what's interesting, too. There's a part 3. So we now know about issues being banned. We now know about individuals being banned. We know it's all lining up conservative. So far, there's no examples that have been released about liberal issues being banned or liberal individuals.
Yeah, that's like a violent something.
Oh, yeah, crime. Something that was criminal or it's like real, something that shouldn't be there. So, there's a part 3. The question is, does it matter to you? Are you just done with this platform and done with the mess of it? Or are you interested in returning back?
Thanks to your support of the ACLJ, we have had many victories.
The report is coming out. It shows that not only did Tea Party groups get more scrutiny, but so did a host of other conservative groups.
It was something that no one could believe our government was even capable of doing, and now they were admitting it.
It's one of the most significant wins in the ACLJ's history. To take on the IRS and win, for the ACLJ, life has always been a top issue.
Barbara, I am here at this site because there are thousands of people and millions across America that say abortion's murder.
When you're fighting for the life of the unborn, you're on the right side of history, you're on the right side of law.
These are young people in their 20s and 30s that are doing this, are fighting for life to beat back the abortion juggernaut.
It's very important that we remain hopeful that the courts that the Trump administration was able to impact will give us good rulings that are based in law and sound reasoning.
This is one of the social issues we're winning.
There are historians that point out that religious persecution is at its highest level since the first 3 centuries when the Roman Empire led religious persecution.
A mid-state pastor's family is fighting to bring him home.
We are getting my husband after 7.5 months.
Turkey should not get away with holding my father one more day.
When Brunson was finally released, who meets him at the airport at 2:30 in the morning? Rick Grinnell.
I saw Pastor Brunson walk down the stairs of the plane. I was filled with emotion. I told him that we were praying for him. The American people never forgot about him.
I'm thankful, I'm grateful, and actually I'm astounded.
We need your help as we continue this work here in the United States and around the world. Join the matching challenge today, and your tax-deductible donation will be doubled.
All right, welcome back to Sekulow. We're taking your calls at 1-800-684-3110. One topic we did get to, we got to start a podcast. These attacks on these electrical plants and substations, too, not like the main plant. Started out in North Carolina where there were 4 days, and it's very local focus, so it's not like the whole state is without power. And they're trying to figure out what is the conservative effort behind this. People are using basically all it takes is like wire cutters and a couple gunshots, and they're taking out the entire power infrastructure for at least days for like a community.
Yeah. And it's also happened now in Oregon and Washington State.
Coast to coast now.
So now the FBI is looking at it. You got to look at it. You have to look into the context of terrorism to start. I don't think you can ignore that is a possibility, because one of the things the terrorists said back, Jordan, when you were working for the Justice Department years ago, during the right after 9/11, it was the issue we were worried about. I was working on the Patriot Act, was the whole issue of power grid.
Usually we think about power grid attacks as a form of cyber attack coming out of like Russia or North Korea or China. This is, again, wire cutters at a substation, which does not have a ton of protection. They have, fencing. You drive by these all the time in your community, and a gunshot to a specific part of the machinery there, and that's it. So one, it shows some inside knowledge into how to use a gun to take out one of these power plants. But two, this happens at a widespread scale during the winter. You got real issue. People die.
So look, you always have to look at this. That's why I say you got to look at this in the context of terrorism only, because let me tell you what it does. If you're in that community and your power's out, it's terrifying. Yeah. And you don't know when the fact that somebody is able to do it as easy, Jordan, as you just discussed. They know exactly what to hit. It's wire cutters and a gun, and they can knock out the power grid for an entire community. And think, Logan, what was it, 4 or 5 days?
Yeah, I think they said it was until yesterday, I think, that all of it was restored. I'm not sure exactly the details, but we know that's been a big problem. And clearly, with supply chain shortages and things getting things get fixed, it's probably not easy. And there's a lot of these sort of substations where they probably can't guard all of them, actually physically possible. So it's pretty interesting to see. We do have some other calls.
Let's go back to the phones.
All right, Jane's calling in Dallas, Texas. You're on the air.
Hi, dear. How you doing? I think you said something like, are you done with Twitter, or what's your opinion on that, right? Something like that. And my thoughts are no. Why? Elon Musk went through a lot of trouble. His life is probably on the line to let us see what the truth is. And I say we can't stop. I'm not leaving Twitter. I wasn't even that active on Twitter, but now I will be more active because there won't be the bias. So I say keep going.
I think that's where a lot of people are. I'll give it another shot. I'm not 100% saying like let's say if Elon Musk can actually get a handle of this behemoth, he certainly put the resources there. Him, like Larry Ellison, a few other investors, they put their money where their mouth is. But they're still having to root out the fact that Jim Baker ended up at Twitter from the FBI just for the election period. Just the only time he was really there was for the last election. That's when he started, presidential election. So he gets removed from the FBI and goes right to Twitter and starts censoring if anything bad about Joe Biden.
It's pretty crazy.
Well, that's where Section 230 also doesn't give you immunity, because you can't use your company to play politics.
No, and
that's very illegal.
And I think, again,
not to say you want to punish Elon Musk for it, but these individuals like Jim Baker, who are attorneys, knew that you can't use your corporation to play partisan politics.
That's correct, because you violate not only your corporate law, but you're violating federal election law.
Right.
Because it could be deemed an in-kind contribution to a campaign.
Of like an unbelievable amount to keep a story like the Hunter Biden laptop out.
But the key thing is we were able to determine Jim Baker's involvement at the FBI level, and then because of our FOIA work and our Office of Government Accountability, and then he goes over to, so we're able to draw the links because we have the emails.
That's why he's the name.
Or else you would have never known who this guy was.
Yeah.
Nobody knows who's could you tell me the general counsel of the FBI today? No.
No, and even the general counsel from Twitter who was let go immediately, No one knew that name.
Yeah, and Matt
These are
Taibbi,
board member level.
He put in that thing that when he said that this was coming from a source named Jim, they were finding all the stuff out. And they said when they actually figured out who it was like...
It's like, you got to be kidding.
Yeah, they was just like, they were so stunned.
Because every conspiracy, these again, Blade Swalwell saying it. I mean, it's like, my God, I wonder what's going on Facebook. It's got to be even worse.
Well, it is, but you
bigger,
may never know.
And, right, they don't have somebody buying it to expose it. But I think it's very similar. I actually think that they have more people doing the same thing.
It probably is similar. I think a lot of these companies, they operate.
They're the similar people.
Yeah.
Isn't the interesting thing, though, we thought the problem was that it was initially AI, right?
I would always have assumed that it was, they blamed it on AI, and you kind of assumed that there was some, but you thought it was like trigger words, that you couldn't say.
Abortion, pro-life.
And clearly there is some of that, by the way. There's definitely some of
that happen, yes.
But to find out there's actually the people, on the ground, boots on the ground
looking for Charlie Kirk to say, don't delete his account because we don't want to upset him too much. Just don't share his tweets too far.
Yeah.
Don't let him trend.
Yeah.
Don't let other people who don't follow him
get loud.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
And again, there is an issue because people have invested resources into these accounts. Section 230 is not about liability from investing and money being exchanged. That's a different issue, I think. Now, again, you don't even necessarily punishing Elon Musk who's trying to fix it. So what he's said he's going to do is create a software program that will allow us to see how are you banned, where are you, what's your standing in Twitter, and how
you can feel it. He's going to actually have an appeal process inside of Twitter is what they're saying.
Yeah, which they have for a lot of social
right
media
now.
platforms.
Got to get rid of the people.
Look, it's just like a Facebook.
Jim Baker was there until a few days ago.
Every time,
literally.
Yeah, until Facebook, even with Facebook, whenever they've hit us with something, you have an appeal process, and every time we've won, every single time they've said this is misinformation, disinformation, we've won. But yeah, of course they don't go out and say, by the way, everyone,
we were wrong.
We were wrong. It wasn't fake news. But it is part of the process. They do have these boards that set in place to do it. And again, usually we win those, but you'll never know that unless we go out and say it. Just like you would never know we couldn't run an ad on Twitter. And we didn't even know until we went to go try to run an ad on Twitter.
I think that what it's going to show with Elon Musk's move here, and then with the Republicans in the House of Representatives, you're going to start learning a lot more because you're right. They could bring up Jim Baker to the House Judiciary Committee or Oversight and say, what were you doing there? And the fact, again, we pointed this out a week ago because we had the information. We had the information because of your support to the ACLJ. And we had the information because our lawyers went to court involving the FBI, and we had an email. I don't know if we have it where we could put it up there. It's the one that has, it's from James Comey to Jim Baker and also to Andrew McCabe, actually. And we're trying to figure, everybody, when we first got this, everybody's trying to figure out who's who. And I said, part of what you have to do here is look at who the emails are from and to. And we learn a lot just from seeing who's in communication with who. And we certainly found that out. But we didn't find that out without your help, because without your help, we couldn't do it.
Yeah, that's right. So support the work of the ACLJ. This final minute of the broadcast today, if you go to aclj.org right now, you'll see a matching challenge on our homepage. And just to explain it again, it's very simple. We have a group of donors this month of December, final month of the year, say we will match the donations that come through to aclj.org. So if you make a $30 donation to aclj.org today, we have a donor that will match that $30. So it triggers a match. And so you've doubled the impact of your donation. It's like $60 for us to the ACLJ. So we encourage you to support our work that way at aclj.org.
Schumer?
Yeah, Schumer has announced that she is keeping her committee assignment. So she's staying with the Democrats.
Yes.
She is or can't?
Well, she wants him.
Okay.
She said she wants him, and now they said you can have him.
So that means she's basically
they want to keep her in the fold,
so
which
she's
makes
really
sense.
Caucusing with the Democrats.
Even if she doesn't show up to the meetings, they said she didn't show up to the meetings before.
Yeah.
But this was, again, I think more of a move for her electorally.
Politically.
At home. She could have been beaten in a primary by a liberal. All right, we'll talk to you Monday on Sekulow.